Welcome back to Delphi Psychotherapy Billing Software. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about advances. There's a couple of cool little tricks in the program that make the whole process of dealing with an advance a little bit easier. In a couple of the previous videos, we talked about, well, the basic concept in the program is that payments, when you receive a payment, that payment is applied against a session. The second major concept is that those sessions should never be overpaid. However, we live in a different world where we receive money sometimes and we may not be crystal clear about where that money goes. And instead of applying that money against a session, we can always pay it against what's called an advance. Now, what I'm going to do is start with a fresh account here to show you kind of a cool little trick. I'm going to click on Delete Financial History. This is a very dangerous button because this is going to get you back to a blank person who has no financial history and has no payments, no sessions. But before we begin, I'm going to click on the patient information screen and go to insurance coverage. And what we're saying on this screen, where the calculate copayment feature is listed, is that we believe the copay to be, let's pretend, $20 per visit. What this results in, you could also do this as a percentage if you'd like, but if I close this screen and I click on record a session, this results in the standard charge. Of course, you can edit your charges in the setup menu under procedure codes. But the charge for this session, and I'm going to make this session actually occur on January 1st, and I'll pick a different procedure code, interview evaluation, since we're starting fresh with this account. And that the client responsibility is 20. Now, one nice, or at least somewhat useful feature on this screen is that if you get a payment at the time of the session that is for that session and that session only, then we can certainly enter the payment here. And so we can just pretend in this case this was a copay check, maybe number 345, and then the amount in this case is $20. However, we find that a lot of people simply ignore this concept. And what Delphi will do is that let's just pretend that the client is feeling a little bit wealthy today, or just happens to have some spare money, and on the very first session they say, well, I'm just going to give you $100 because I want you to use this $100 to pay off my this session and maybe my next 4 sessions. So in this example, I'm going to enter that they paid us $100 at the time of the session. Now, of course, the problem here is that what they're really doing is paying $20 against this session. And if we pay a full $100 against this session, the insurance company is probably going to come in and give us some more money, which is going to result in this session being quite overpaid. So the little trick that we're trying to express here is if you receive more money than the copay, which is 20, which is what we believe the copay to be, and we click Save This Session, Delphi is going to state that the expected patient copay for this session is 20 and you are attempting to apply 100. This will result in an overpayment of $80 against the patient responsibility for this session, which we really don't want to do. In this case, Delphi will automatically apply the remaining 80 against an advance. So if we click OK, now let's take a peek at the payment screen. Even though we received $100 and we paid 20, we paid the whole 100 against that session, Delphi is not going to let you get away with it. We're only going to take up to the amount that the client actually owes for that session, 20, and then we'll take the remaining $80 in this case, and we will pay that against an advance for you. This leaves $80 in reserve that we can use up potentially over the next 4 sessions. So let's try that. Let's record let's record 2 more sessions. So if I click on record a session and I'll say the date was on the 2nd, and this time there was no payment, and record a session, and this time the session was on the 3rd, and save this session. Let's do 2 more. A session on the 4th, save, record a session on the 5th, save. Now let's take a peek at the payment screen. Now, in the real world, this person doesn't owe us a dime. they have made $80 in payments against their advance, and we have 4 sessions at $20 each for a total of $80. So the patient balance is really zero, but we have never actually taken the money and paid off the session. You could leave this, but we recommend that you don't. And in this case, I'm going to apply an advance. So the description is apply previous payment. I often just type in apply advance. The dollar amount is zero. We did not receive any more money. We're simply taking money from one location and paying it to another. So I will click on apply advance. Remember, the dollar amount is zero. I click apply advance. I click yes to the lecture. I double click on the advance, and I want to take all 80 away from it, minus 80. I click apply, and if you look at the amount of the payment, I now have a normal payment of $80, in which case I'm going to pay 20 against this session, and 20 against this session, and 20 against this session, and 20 against this session. So, one more little peek at the payment screen is the patient balance, we still have $80 owing on each session that we're probably going to get from the insurance, but the patient balance is zero on all sessions. So again, the main point of this video is that if you set the client, I'm going to delete this one more time, delete financial history. Remember, this is a dangerous thing that you would not normally do. I'm just trying to get you back to a point in time of nothing happening for this client. If I go to patient information, let's try a different example. I'll go to insurance coverage, and remember, if these are zero, then the client is going to, I'll just leave this at zero and close this. If I click on record a session, the client by default is going to owe the entire amount. However, we may have a case where the client doesn't owe us anything. So if I click on patient information under insurance coverage, if we want the client to owe nothing on a session, then we enter 100%. It's a little counterintuitive, but enter 100 here. Now click on record a session. And the client responsibility is zero. But let's pretend that the client actually paid us $50. The trick is that Delphi knows full well that $0 should be applied against this session. So if I click save this session, but we did receive $50 today. So instead of committing the $50 against this, Delphi, when you click save, will state the expected patient copay for this session is $0, and you are attempting to apply $50. This will result in an overpayment of $50 against the patient responsibility for this session. In this case, Delphi will automatically apply the remaining $50 against an advance. And if I click OK, we've saved the session. If we go take a peek at the payment screen, here's the $50 sitting in reserve that we can then later on find out that maybe the patient responsibility was really $10 a session, and we could wait for a few more sessions to occur. Basically, you're going to want to wait until the insurance actually pays this to figure out what the client responsibility is. And at that point, we can apply the $50 or whatever amount is sitting in the advance. So that's a quick discussion of how Delphi will basically let you make a payment without you overpaying the client responsibility. In this case, we received more money than the client really owes on the session, and Delphi will automatically pay that against the advance. And just for kicks, let's look at the financial history. We had a session on the 27th. The patient made a $50 check, but we knew the client responsibility was zero, so we took the whole $50 and paid it to the advance. We get to use this advance later on as we please, and the client could make a $50 payment on their 3 sessions. We would end up with $150. Once the insurance pays something on these sessions, and potentially we find out that the client responsibility is $30 for each session, we could borrow $90 from the $150 and pay off those sessions. Hope that makes sense.